Fishkill?
I don't know.
No, I'm doing good.
No, Fishkill, again.
Okay, the April 12th meeting of the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee meeting is going to come to order. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to start with, we'll do a roll call. We'll start on my far right, and we'll go right around the room.
Ann? Introduce yourself,
I'm looking for my
please.
glasses, that's why I'm distracted.
That's okay.
Your name?
Ann LaGoy.
Kenya Gadsden, present.
Fred Cantor.
Liz Axelson, planning consultant to the CPU committee.
John Foreman, member of the Fishkill Town Board.
Jonathan Cantor, or also known as John, but since there are too many other Johns here, I'll go by Jonathan tonight.
Brian Ryan, member of the Fishkill Town Board.
Megan LoCicero from Drake Globe. We are the attorneys for the committee.
Okay, I will turn this over to Liz.
Okay, so we do have an agenda. I think everybody has one. It's pretty brief. I wanted to just touch base on a couple of changes very quickly. First, I want to let you all know that the CPU committee meeting videos that had been on the website all of a sudden became very hard to find, and Greg Totino was good enough to take the whole collection that Peter Skorowitz had put together and put them back on, and they're now on the CPU committee webpage. Okay. There's one meeting missing that I had found before that I'd stumbled onto that I'm hoping they will add back, and then there are 3 committee meetings, and I think I would have to reach out to the town board's prior law firm to see if we could get those. They're the Zoom meetings, the first 3 in September, October, December 2021. So.
Oh, that's
I don't have them. I mean, it wasn't.
I know you
here,
don't.
here.
Yeah.
So I made that
It was
clear.
before you.
Yeah, she said previous. You're off the hook.
Before Drake Globe.
Someone pointed to me. I just want innocent.
You're innocent. So the biggest chunk of work that's happened recently had to do with taking all the different comments over time, and especially those from, I believe it was the March 15th meeting, and going through the document and moving things around. Hello. To make the document a little bit more focused on text and what the plan wants to say, and taking some of the more detailed information and tables and putting them further back in the document or adding them as addenda.
Can we have the member who just arrived say her name?
Yes, please.
Hi, this is Karen Finnegan. Sorry I'm late.
It's all good. It's all good, Karen.
Good.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Glad you're here. So I won't go into too many details. I did add a title page. There's an inset page that talks about that this comprehensive plan update that this committee has been working on was prepared for the town of Fishkill Town Board, prepared by the Fishkill CPU committee, and with technical assistance. So I list Drake Globe and CPL, CAMO Pollution Control. And then there's a sheet that lists the committee members' names. I was contacted by someone who wants to be taken off that list, but otherwise everybody's listed here because we wouldn't have this document if it wasn't for the committee. And then special thanks to town departments. So there's a page added about that. The comprehensive plan update now has a table of contents, and then a lot of the stuff that we had, the sections, introduction, vision, the committee process, those are still all up front. The committee's online and paper survey process, still up front. And then a summary of the online survey results is up front, but the more detailed survey results that had been in the early part of the document are now an addendum at the end. And they're at the end of volume 1. So if you get to the end of, hang on a second here. So right after the implementation plan table are where all the addendums are. I don't know if you've had time to flip through the document and see how these things got moved around. I don't want you to be mystified by things disappearing.
What you're looking at now is the one that you sent out on the 29th, or the...
That's the one that's over there. What I'm looking at right now is the track changes version.
Newest.
The newest is a March 29th.
Right, okay, that's the one that I,
Right, and it's a 3-volume set.
yes, yep. Okay,
So volume 1 is all the text plus the addendums,
right.
addenda, sorry. And volume 2 are all the appendices, including survey results and all that. And volume 3 are all the maps. So then, the next section that comes up begins the goals, objectives, and strategies, and it begins with a description of what are we doing here, and then it goes through sections A through K, I believe.
Can I just interject?
Yes?
It's just, really just a spacing editing thing, like, should I email that to you? I mean, I emailed it to everybody, but like, should I tell you now?
Sure.
You can, right, so, because it's easier, like, if somebody says, as you're looking at it, under introduction, there's a paragraph right above the picture, beautiful picture. There needs to be a space, like you space between each of the paragraphs, there needs to be a space between the third and fourth paragraph.
Okay.
Wait, did I count them right? Yes, 1, 2, 3, yeah, third and fourth paragraph.
Oh, I see. Okay, because it's a little short paragraph.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you. All right, good. Anything else? And Jonathan told me about Daniel Nimham. So anything else? Okay. Well, feel free to tell me if you think of it later. So that's the walkthrough on the big changes, and most of those had to do with the committee saying, you know, too much detail here, put it at the end, that kind of stuff. So that's the big overview of that.
I do have a question.
Yes, go.
Executive summary on my, it's page 9, but I'm not, again, from the 29th.
Executive summary.
Let me see here.
Are we talking about the CPU?
Yep. Let's see.
an
The
executive
SurveyMonkey platform, that's the first words that come up on that page. I just want to make sure.
What page do you think it is?
It's page 9.
Yep.
I see.
And I just want to make sure that we are not, when we mention the rail trail, that we're not talking about a commuter train or any locomotive train. I know that came up during the public hearing.
Yes.
And I believe that the majority of the committee really did not want to entertain that because if it's expensive and the return on it is not. Michael Justice sent around actually a study that was done by the
Yep.
county.
Yep.
So anyway, I just wanted to make sure, like, we say rail trail and like kind of we know what we're talking.
Yes.
Like, I want there to be no mistake.
Yes.
You know.
Okay, and you know what, I'm going to do a search through to make sure that's clear, but I don't remember ever adding anything that would talk about a combo.
I didn't think so either, but
So-
when the person got up and spoke, he made
It's gonna be
he made it sound
recreation,
like
pedestrian,
we were talking
bike.
about a train, and that's not what
I
we were
think
talking
that
about.
is a preference he's expressed. I know
Yes.
he and I had a long phone call, and he said, you know, you can have a rail trail and have.
Correct.
And my
Yes.
understanding is that this committee and the community wants it to be pedestrian trail,
yeah,
pedestrian
yeah.
and bike.
Yeah, the only thing that I found in this that might be construed or misinterpreted is when it's talking, in several locations, when it's talking about that rail trail, it's mentioning pedestrians, commuters, and bicyclists.
Okay, I'll do a word search.
Now, if the commuter is living and working within Fishkill, then that's fine, but to me, it kind of insinuates that a commuter train, I
That's
don't know that I
important.
would use the word commuter, that's
Okay.
just my 2 cents.
Okay.
Yep, and I'll just say, I agree entirely with Ann. This committee had a fairly lengthy discussion about that because the idea of a commuter railroad going back on that train line had come up by the town historian, although he added, he said that again at the town board meeting, at the
Yes.
public hearing, and said that he was expressing that thought not as the town historian, but as an individual. Well, originally, when his suggestion came, it was as the town historian, and we talked about that extensively, and I think more than just a majority of the committee thought it was not a good idea to put a railroad, a train back on those tracks. There are many areas of that line where it's very constrained in terms of width and areas, the way the tracks are currently set up, and I think you're going to need every inch of that just for a bicycle and pedestrian trail.
Yeah.
And for buffering from adjacent residential areas that it is going by. So, yes, I agree with you, Ann.
I agree. I mean, it never happened. You'd have 100 years of public hearings, it never would go through, so.
No, I know, but, I don't even want to invite that to keep coming back.
So that first place where it shows up is in the survey results, which is what people told us they wanted to see.
The rail trail.
I think, Liz, if
Yeah.
you go through, do your word search and make sure there are absolutely no references to reuse as a, commuter railroad, that would be good, but I don't remember
I didn't
seeing
see
it.
any,
I
but.
didn't
And
either.
is this, I've always felt a little concerned if it's a public, like a survey comment, to be very careful not to change the wording, but let me do a word search for it, commuter, rail, et cetera, and just make sure there isn't anything.
Yeah. But,
That could be
the
confused or
concept comes
misconstrued.
up as, in the goals and objectives after we've gone through the survey. So that's our wording. So I think we can make sure that is worded the way we want it to be worded.
Right.
So I just had a
I'll look
suggestion.
for commuter and rail, just to double check and see how that shows up.
If it makes it easier, we could put a clause somewhere to indicate that it's not like a train use trail, rail trail. It's walk or whatever. So this way people could see that and won't confuse it.
I mean, I think it's fair to say pedestrian and bike trail. Who else would be using it, I think?
I don't know, but sometimes people just convert it into what they want it to be.
Sure.
And give it life.
The question is whether it's going to
Did you
be
say-
motorized.
I said cartwheelers,
Cartwheelers.
yes. People
Oh,
cartwheelers.
cartwheelers. See, I took that literally. You
So
mean,
did I. I'm
it's a
envisioning
motorized
myself-
thing.
No, I'm envisioning myself literally
The
doing
car
cartwheels.
That's what I thought you were talking about. I still do them. I'm hoping never to give them up. Okay. But I don't think that's a problem on a rail trail if you have space.
I'm going to go ahead and do it, and we'll see if anybody gives me
Sure.
problems.
They might applaud you.
They might.
If you could do it the whole length of that trail.
Oh,
Wow.
gosh, all right, well,
Let us know,
it'll be a
man.
fundraiser.
Yes.
Big one.
I'd love
Yes.
to be there, let us know when.
Yes, yes.
That's right. I appreciated the adding Moving Duchess Forward website in there. That was a really interesting addition. And I have a question about the Duchess, and this is page 13, Duchess Marketplace. Is that what that's called? The old Duchess Mall is now, is the Duchess? I know it used to be a marketplace, but what is that campus called?
Are you
You're
on,
talking about,
Page
flea
13,
market?
intersection of US Route 9 and Interstate
Letter D.
84.
Letter D.
Letter D.
okay, gotcha.
That was easier.
Duchess, okay, so that's not,
I don't know. What is the name
I
of
mean,
it?
I've heard
It was never a Duchess Marketplace.
okay, so let's get rid of
the
that.
official campus of
The
Dutchess
only,
Community
the only
College.
thing you had there was a Duchess flea
I mean,
market.
that's what I.
Flea market
There was a
used to be
Duchess
there.
flea
Well, the flea market
market,
used to be
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
That's what I thought
Yeah,
that
it's there
Duchess
anymore.
Market, okay.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
So what are we calling it?
Market there.
College took over that whole, I don't think there's any space for a
I don't
flea
think that they
Oh, yes,
took the
there
whole
is.
campus,
Yeah,
did
Is there?
they? Like the whole
Hey,
area.
I've been in the place. Dutchess Community College took one half of the upstairs.
That's true,
All right?
yeah.
The whole downstairs is not, however, speaking to the people who are marketing it, they are not at all interested in putting in another flea market.
Yeah, no, I guess,
So-
what's it-
because I hate to call it
What's
the
the name of the
old
mall?
Duchess Mall.
That building is the
Okay.
Maze building, all right?
The building
What
at
was that
college.
whole
It used to
campus
be
called?
the anchor of the Duchess Mall. That was the anchor, that was a two-story department
So
store.
what's like the most common name that people would recognize? Because we're describing
Old Duchess Mall.
Duchess Mall.
Old Duchess Mall.
I hate to give it credence, you know, if we're
But
trying to
it's-
let it go, but everybody knows it.
Well, is there another phrase that
Right
is
now,
being promoted that you want?
there is no
Okay.
other name as
Okay.
of this point. You have Home Depot there.
The Revolutionary War encampment,
And you also have the.
Originally.
You also have the warehouses going in there, which we don't know who's going to be in there. And
I
then-
know,
and
it's
then-
hard.
And then
But in
Dutchess
this-
Community College
Right,
is putting in some great things there, but
right.
most of the building is still looking for a tenant.
okay.
So we don't even know what's going to go up on the
Yeah.
building.
Can we
Exactly.
say
What do we call
Old
it?
Duchess Mall / Duchess Community College?
No, we could say it's the old Dutchess Mall
Refurbished.
area, but that's what it is.
Okay, fine.
The whole area is known as the Duchess Mall.
Right.
Because
I
it's
know,
just
I
to
know it is.
describe
Even though the
it.
supermarket was separate and a
Right.
couple other things.
But it's all
it was
known
the
as the Duchess Mall.
And-
Yeah.
And it was one owner.
Is that okay?
Right.
Old Duchess, just former?
Former,
Yeah.
yeah.
How about former?
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Okay, it's just a locational reference.
Yeah.
Something that's,
Seasoned,
Okay.
the seasoned Duchess Mall site.
what else?
Okay, hold on, sorry. These are like just.
Former Duchess Mall, now.
This-
Correct.
Yeah, I like former.
Okay.
I already mentioned the commuting, commuter. On page 17, J, review the results of any large-scale projects. Should we define large-scale for the review, or when you do a review of such a thing, does it all pop up?
I think they would have to be something that triggered a traffic study. Because that's the whole point of that
And that would be the
paragraph.
definition in and of itself?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
But
I,
every project we do
okay.
involves a
Every?
traffic study.
really?
Really?
Every subdivision we do. or-
You mean 5 lots? No.
Well, not.
Or do they just give you
No.
traffic volume?
No, let's be clear, not everything that comes before the planning board involves a traffic study,
But
but
other things do.
many do, but this is dealing with large-scale projects that involve
A traffic impact study?
large-scale traffic impact studies.
How about a traffic impact
What do
study?
But-
I mean, what would that be? Like, what would you consider that, like, large scale?
Well, it could be
Like-
almost anything,
Like,
it
yeah.
depends on
20
the context
units,
of where
100
it's located,
units?
for one thing.
100,000 square foot?
No, I wouldn't
Retail?
want to characterize it in
I don't
any
think you can.
threshold, no.
I would just leave it.
I think it's fine. I'm trying to remember what the context of this objective was.
Do you want me to read it?
To learn about this,
Review?
Well, I'm going
Oh.
back to the beginning of the objective.
this has to do with
Connects.
looking at connecting streets and neighborhoods.
Right,
And within that, D, on page 16, established communities and railroads tend to run alongside waterways, so then we're talking about all these parks. Wait a minute here. Then on to the next page. More things about connecting communities. And then when you get down to J, review results of any large-scale projects in the last 5 years that resulted in traffic studies and recommend mitigation. Look for recent New York State DOT or Dutchess County planning studies or plans about traffic and transit. It's another reference in that overall section about supporting the need to connect streets and neighborhoods and
Yeah.
encourage walking and biking,
and basically
connecting with
looking-
sidewalks, bicycle lanes, et cetera.
and looking at the traffic conditions on the roadways, basically.
Right, as kind of a support or another reason, a safety
Yeah,
reason.
I mean, I think this is just intended to be like a reference
Yes.
It's not saying what level projects come to the planning board that require traffic studies.
Yeah, 'cause
That's
it's
not what
different
it's saying. It's basically saying, reviewing these traffic studies that have been done over the last 5 years will help the town, the county, and DOT figure out what's going on the road systems. I think that's all it's basically saying.
I think the traffic volume information can also help support, argument for doing a project and possibly an argument for funding if there's a real safety issue in a nearby area.
So that's not something, I mean, that was just a question, like, I don't know if it's enough to say large scale.
I think what we do is say traffic impact studies, and that kind of
Right.
clarifies, because there's a difference between
And that kind of
asking for
underscores
traffic
the
volume
size of
information
it.
versus impact,
Okay.
like on an intersection or street.
Okay.
Does that
Sure.
make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Is that
Good
good?
good enough for me.
What else you got?
Let's
I'm
see.
gratified that you read
She's only
enough
on
to
page
have some.
13.
No, I'm on
Edits.
19. Okay, should we hold off on the big discussion, goal B?
Yeah, let's do that at the
objective
end.
one?
That'll
Okay.
be the big fun thing to do
Okay,
at the
that's
end.
a lot of.
That's a lot of pages.
That's a lot of stuff. Okay, so I am looking at page 21, on the last paragraph.
This is going to be a Jonathan.
And there's where we have it, actually, former Duchess Mall
Duchess Mall
site,
site.
so that makes sense that we're going to use that again in the previous.
So former Duchess Mall.
Yeah, it's referred
Okay.
to as former Duchess Mall
It's
site.
by the square
Okay.
footage, it starts where the square footage is.
Yeah, as I'm, planning board redevelopment
Yeah, I
of
see
that
it.
site to include a 350,000 square foot warehouse building and associated parking plus 2 vacant shopping center parcels for future development to be retained by the current owner for future commercial retail business development. Why are we referencing that particular agreement that may change?
Is that an agreement, or is that just a description of, I'm not familiar with this project.
We're talking
Well,
about the
that's-
remainder of the Duchess Mall?
Yeah, so I'll read it again. It's the one such parcel, the former Duchess Mall site on Route 9 already has an application before the planning board for redevelopment of that site to include a 350-plus square foot warehouse building and associated parking. So we know that.
And then in parentheses.
And then
yeah.
it's the parentheses.
Yes.
Why are we adding the parentheses? It
Yes.
says, just for everybody to consider, plus 2 vacant shopping center parcels for future development to be retained by the current owner for future commercial retail business development. I mean, isn't that kind of self-explanatory within its own, the zoning and the property?
Why is it necessary to
rights?
list that?
Yeah, why do we have to have that in there?
Isn't that preceding the last line? This presents an opportunity for short-term cleanup and redevelopment of the abandoned and dilapidated buildings.
That should be in there anyway. Like, we should be cleaning up that hot mess.
So are you saying you think something should be
Regardless.
deleted?
The
I think the
parentheses.
parentheses doesn't need to be in there.
I think the reason it's in there is descriptive of what was before the planning board, because that was actually another of the actions that the planning board had to consider was a subdivision, subdividing those 2 vacant shopping center parcels
So the
out.
parentheses make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I wasn't sure if that was something that was already,
It's-
there.
it-
I'm just wondering, like, let's say.
It's the big
you know,
picture.
Mr. Smith is doing something, like, why would we have to put in parentheses, like, and we're going to allow this to happen? Like, it just seems to me like that's not something that, this is a major document. I just was curious.
I know what you're saying. I think, in my opinion, the whole point of the comprehensive plan update is the big picture.
Right.
So.
Is that
if
the
there
big
is-
picture? That's,
If
I
there
guess,
is
my
something
question.
that is known about, that there's.
That big major
You know,
site,
if somebody's
okay.
coming with a site plan on a huge site, and they're just doing one chunk of it.
Right.
It's very natural for a planning board to say, well, what are you going to do with the rest
Right,
of
we
it?
want to know what's going next. Okay.
You have
all
to
right.
look down, so I think that's the
Yeah.
look down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes
And-
sense to me.
Yep.
It's real small parcels, they're on the road, it's like for another McDonald's
Right.
or something, it's nothing,
Small could be big, we just
Well,
don't know,
it's not that much
Fred.
land.
Small could be big.
it's not that much
so-
land.
An art studio,
Okay.
an art studio, okay. Okay, so that answers that question, thank you.
More housing.
Housing is good, Liz. That's speaking my
Yep,
language.
yep, right off of 84. Okay, look at that, I'm just zipping through. Oh, I have a question on page 25, the very last reference for the Hudson River waterfront. I'm guessing the not guessing, the HRWRD is the Hudson River Water Residential District, is that, am I?
can't remember what it was.
Yeah, let's see.
What? So it says town board work on access with developer, but then it says like.
That's access
It's
to the
just everything
waterfront,
is
isn't
right,
it?
everything is kind of to be determined, like, I just
Isn't
wanted
that town
some
board to work on
more
access to the
information on that.
waterfront?
Yeah, the town board actually had that in front of the board, maybe a year
town board?
ago?
Town.
And the town board basically was asked to work with the developer on the potential for access to that parcel. And so that was a discussion at the town board
Was it for waterfront,
for that waterfront.
for waterfront access?
Yes.
I think it required a bridge or something.
It was a
Yes.
bridge.
So,
So maybe the word waterfront, can we add that in, to town board work on waterfront access?
Well, the parcel is called the Hudson River Waterfront Parcel.
Right.
I
I
guess
don't know
my bigger question really was, why is that to be determined? So we don't know yet what kind of residential potential / type, like, we don't know that yet? Or is that
We
like
don't- we
kind of
don't know that yet.
contingent on what they have to give us as far as waterfront?
I don't know of anything that's proposed, John, do you? I don't, I mean, it's
Not yet.
to be determined, because nobody has anything.
What is it zoned for? I mean, I guess that's.
HRWRD, whatever that
Right,
is.
but, so, I guess
Hudson
it's kind
River
of, I feel like
Water-
I'm circling around, so.
I can tell you some of the things
development.
it's zoned for, things like waterfront parks,
Recreation.
marinas, recreational.
Right.
trails,
Residential.
But also residential.
Do we know how
remember
much
others.
residential can fit in there? I guess that's.
No.
No, okay. I guess that, because that's just my question, like, I don't like to see 113 acres and like very little other information on that.
But isn't this,
But-
this is to be determined, right? They don't have an application.
Correct.
Right,
No.
okay.
So we don't
No one
know.
does.
There's nothing.
I'm just wondering what the limitations are, that's what I-
But at least somebody, the town board must have done something at some point to say,
Right.
we want waterfront access
Right,
here if
right,
we can
yep.
have it. Because that's one of those things, if somebody's doing a development like in town of
by me?
Poughkeepsie, the Dutton sites,
I don't know.
they made it clear that they wanted to have,
I think
in
that's
front
by
of
me.
all the
This is John
apartment
Bones
buildings,
project.
that there would be.
This is John Bones project?
And
I think this
wasn't
is,
seen at Hudson Involvement.
yeah, I think this is by me. This is
Yeah,
where the
this is by
bridge
you.
has to go. This is us,
Yeah,
Mr.
oh, yeah.
Cantor.
It's your,
The bridge
it's
that
all,
they needed to build back there in
it's
order to
all
get
a
access to
property.
that property that they want to
all
build.
right, and we don't know who's going to come. Now, one time, I was with a group that wanted to put an aquarium on that piece of property.
Oh.
All right? Because he was giving it, when he was developing it, we went to him and he said, we would give you the piece of property if you develop it. You still have to put a bridge across to
Right.
get to it.
Bridge.
All right, and I'm going back 30-some.
Is that a bridge over the train?
It's
I
a
don't
bridge
know.
over
You got,
troubled water.
yeah, you
It is
got to
a
do
bridge over
something about the train, you got to get to the water.
Yep.
Because all during that,
That's us. That's back.
you got it.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of land in there, but we
Yeah.
don't know what.
So the reason it's
whole
to be
bunch of-
determined
And it's
is
going to
that
have to go to the
it's,
Okay.
town
In
board
works.
to determine whoever brings that
Right, I
project.
got some
Okay.
rumor on that project, but it's nothing
Okay.
factual, but, so
Yeah,
I won't say
but
my
so-
rumor.
so you-
Right, I won't
Hey,
say my rumor.
there's always a rumor.
Yeah.
like
think
I said,
I'm
it's,
gonna stay with my rumor. It's killing me.
Oh, this is just a very simple, on page 35, objective 5, there should be, that dash should be taken out.
No senior citizens. Next
No
to no
dash.
senior citizens. No senior citizens.
yeah, spell checker has different opinions, doesn't it? Okay, senior citizen.
It's a spell check, is it?
No
Isn't
hyphen.
it crazy?
Okay,
See, that was an easy one. Oh, okay, and so, that's right. So, page 36, just above the beautiful photographs of Stony Hill.
Yep, there's a map blank.
Oh, okay, because it says shown on map blank of CPU into that new zone. Like, what does that mean?
I don't know, I'm going to have to take
Okay.
a look.
All right, I didn't know
I
what that
think there
was.
was
Adopting
a-
conservation zoning, that.
Yeah, wasn't
that
there a
was-
map called proposed conservation zoning district or something
Yeah,
like
I
that?
just
think
wasn't
so.
sure what, like, is that, it's an incomplete sentence.
It's not clear. So,
Okay.
I'll fix that.
All right,
Good
that's
catch.
Well, now that you know what the maps are and where they're going, you can correct or fill in any
Right.
of those types of things that might come up, map number or the title of a map or whatever it might be.
And that was the
I think that's
conservation
it.
zoning district
I
map.
think
I
that's it.
think so.
You mean map 2? I'll see, I'll find out.
While we're on that page with the photographs,
Hold on.
which are beautiful
What was
photographs,
it, 35?
I took some of them myself.
Yes, you did.
But I'm just wondering about the way they're formatted side by side. If you don't look, same page.
A little space in
35,
between, maybe?
36.
Yeah.
So is there a way to
35,
put sort of like a border around
36.
them? Because they're two different photos.
Okay.
And it looks like it's.
I know. Okay.
It looks like it's almost a
I mean,
panoramic view.
I actually could put one in a different part of that section.
Well,
No,
I mean, I
maybe
like,
just a little space in between.
yeah, I like
Little
having them
space?
there, but,
I agree with that.
yeah, some kind of a
Yeah.
border or spacing between them.
Okay.
That happened
That's
in a
very
couple of
easy.
other places too, with photographs, where they blend together.
Yeah, making sure I'm looking.
And the same thing, actually, to Jonathan's point, is on page 44 with the Hendrick Kip House and the Van Wyck Homestead, little space.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay. Space or border. Good.
We're really going at it, and page 46, center the Glen Elementary School picture.
That should have been centered. Good catch.
So my next, thing that I had highlighted, I think is it goes back to the biggie. So, and that's.
What page is that on?
It's on page 48. It's as part of that table of kind of.
It's the
table.
implementation plan table, and that will have to be updated if we update
Right.
these sections.
Yep.
So-
And there's like a couple of mentions of commuter, so it's kind of the same thing. Like if we make changes in the document, then the timetable would be.
I mean, there are going to be places where commuter is going to make sense, but I'll check for that thing
Right,
about the
yep,
rail trail being just
Yeah,
for pedestrians and bikers.
right. I think that's it.
And just so the committee knows, I will have to update the table if the text is updated. Maybe. That's it?
That was it for the kind of littler.
Anybody
questions and
else?
stuff.
I think we're all overwhelmed with the last part.
Wow. All right, if you find anything else,
Oh, page 34, pictures separated.
okay, hang on. Isn't that the one? Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yep, good. Well, now I know to look for that.
Right, I was gonna say, there's a few of them.
I mean, if it looks, if I do happen to think about maybe putting another one in that section, that's a possibility too. Do you have a preference? They'll be bigger, they'll just take up more space.
I do think that, again, to Jonathan's point, I think separating,
Would do it.
just good
Yep.
graphically,
Yep.
it would be to give a little bit of
Okay,
space on
good,
that.
good. What else?
That's it.
Oh,
Okay.
that's not it, Brian.
That's
Now
all
it's the
Brian wants
big
to
one.
discuss.
No, we
Yeah.
were gonna do the big one,
Yeah.
We haven't done the biggie, I know.
but,
But others, yeah, the other
but any
stuff.
others, okay, because there is, so we'll have a little intermission, sort of?
Yeah, let's go right.
You won't glaze over completely, but I just want to touch base. As you all know, there was a CPU public hearing on April 5th, and I'm glad everybody showed up and spoke. And just looking down the road, I sent out to the town board today a draft final generic environmental impact statement, and a draft secret findings. And so those will be on the agenda for April 19th. And then my understanding is, originally, there was the possibility of trying to adopt the comprehensive plan update on the 19th. But it seemed to make more sense to push it back to the next meeting, which would be May 3rd. So anyway, hopefully, at the meeting on the 19th, next Wednesday, they'll consider the final GEIS and the findings statement and determine the final generic environmental impact statement to be complete and adopt the seeker findings. And then there will be a continuation of the public hearing, see if anybody needs to stand up and speak or there are any more written comments. And then I think the town board intends to close the hearing.
Did they get any comments, any written comments come in?
We
They
had
were-
Because it was
one.
open.
We had one.
One?
Can we hear that?
I thought they read it into the records, no? They just entered it?
I don't know, you guys didn't see it?
I didn't hear, I know, well, if they sent it, I didn't see it, but
I didn't-
Becky would have usually read it
It
in
was
if that's what they requested.
from the attorney for,
Oh, he was, I wasn't.
Well, you read it at the
He read it at the
meeting,
podium.
right?
He spoke at the podium. In
well, no,
addition
it was
to
the
that-
attorney for Continental Commons, the development.
Oh, I don't know. This, the guy
No,
that-
we didn't see that.
There's another attorney
That was a different
that was
one,
for
yeah.
that other parcel up the street.
Yeah, that we didn't mention in the
Yeah.
comp plan. Oh, I
Right.
don't know about, I don't know about
Yeah,
that.
no, we didn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically wanting a lot of things like, that were overlays for historical sites and anything that touched that property, requesting for it to be removed. And, it has no.
Like what? I mean,
No,
can we,
it's
I want to see that.
I want to say the name.
Well, it has no bearing, it's
Yeah, so-
nothing that,
Oh.
that,
That's a written comment, isn't it?
yeah.
Well, yeah, I saw that.
Did you see it?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
No, I
yes, I
haven't
saw
seen
that from him, from the attorney saying,
Yeah, why
you
don't we
should not
have,
have any historical thing for Continental Commons.
Right.
And that was it.
That was it.
But I didn't know if anything else came in.
so maybe.
That was it.
Maybe Greg could circulate that
came
to
in
everybody.
this- that came
Yeah,
in recently?
please.
Way back,
When
That
it
would
came
be
in?
great,
at least a month ago.
because I don't have it.
If not
Well, it
longer.
came in, not that long ago.
Probably-
It came in around the time of the public
That's
hearing.
kind of
Probably the next
significant.
night.
I mean, I
Probably
would
next
like to
night.
see that.
Right,
Ask Greg
because-
to circulate it.
Thanks, I
Yeah,
appreciate
because then
that.
there's comments, because I know about that, but only because of my unfortunate involvement.
And
in
actually,
it.
that, I can circulate the final generic environmental impact statement and the findings to the committee.
Okay.
It's just with the secret documents, I had kind of thought maybe you didn't need more documents in your inbox.
Yeah,
But
no,
if
I
you
mean,
would
I'm
like-
more interested in hearing all of the public comments, all of the submitted comments, the written comments.
Well, the only written comments, there were written comments on the EIS, the draft generic EIS, and then there was the one comment by Holland and Knight, but that was a verbal comment on the comprehensive plan.
That was here at the meeting.
So whatever the verbal comment was, that was on the comprehensive plan update. And the written comment, I believe the firm is called Holland and Knight. That was,
I have not seen that.
they
I would
were
like
on
to see
the, that was on
So
the
we'll see
draft
it.
generic environmental impact statement. It'd be very easy for me to
Yeah, just-
circulate to the
yeah,
committee.
Yeah, that's easy okay.
Where's my agenda? So I'll just forward you the email with the FGEIS, final generic environmental impact statement, and the draft findings. So then you have it.
Could I ask another question on that?
Please.
Will the final generic EIS and the finding statement be on the CPU website? Or maybe I'll state it.
I'm not
It
sure
should
that
be.
I specified that.
It should be on the website. That's,
Okay.
I'll make it into a comment.
The DGEIS was, so
Yeah, so.
I'll ask.
It would make sense to follow up with
I
having
will
the final
ask.
documents on as well.
Right, so I'll take care of getting the final GEIS and the draft findings to the committee and have those be on the CPU webpage.
Yeah, that would be good.
as long as we're talking about the CPU webpage, I kept having trouble finding all the CPU committee meeting videos. And at one point, I stumbled onto all of them and made a list of them. And then I went to look again and couldn't find them, so I asked.
So you couldn't stumble again?
I couldn't stumble again, so I figured, Megan, the planner at my office, who's in her 20s, I thought she'll be able to find it, and she couldn't, so that made me feel better. But then I reached out to Pete Skorowitz, and he put all of those, he gave a link to Greg Totino, and he put them all on the webpage, but there's one missing, so I'll persist on that. Anyway, it's all there now. Okay, so that's the timeline. And then I guess we're down to the big issue. And I did scribble something only to have something to shoot darts at, and I think everybody here may have ideas, so, about what to do with that language. And it matters very much, so I'm passing these in both directions. Jonathan may have some ideas.
Jonathan has ideas.
And take one and pass it down, just like in school.
Screwing it up. You're gonna give him a 0 for this, Mr. Cantor.
So have a look.
Oh, big print.
I'm sorry.
Hold on here.
Its track changes, it makes it small.
I'm glad I
So
have my
basically what-
glasses on.
Basically, what this does is it makes a little bit more of a header out of the first paragraph. Well, I'm sorry, the third paragraph has a bigger header, which explicitly says something that was discussed at the September 14th, 2022 Comprehensive Plan Update Committee in person when Michael Tremper came from KMO, and he visited and he talked all about, just off the top of his head, he was amazing, about what we have and what we don't have. And in the middle of that, I must have scribbled and forgotten that there was discussion of making a map. And right now, I just want to give a big wad of credit to Barbara Ryzek McGuckin, pardon me if I'm mispronouncing your name, who works in the Water and Sewer Department. And she, at some point, had taken GIS information and created a map showing all the districts, but she had a hard time with the GIS data that was available to her and whatever format she was using to put the map together. But I know that we talked about creating a map to show the location of existing sewer or wastewater districts and systems, I think, would be good, to what extent we can show systems. But those districts are really important because they determine what parcels are in those districts and what do they have access to or not.
And tax.
It's
And
not fair for him to
taxes.
have it all in his head, and we can't look at it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I
And
remember, I
he
do
did
remember
do
that.
He did do a write-up, and it's an appendix,
Yeah.
and there's some extra text in there, but it was at least something.
Is she also doing water or just the sewage?
I think it would be good to do,
I think it'd be excellent to do both.
No,
Yep.
we should have both, yeah.
yep, okay, so in water too. I was afraid to just throw that in there because,
Jonathan,
okay.
that doesn't exist today, does it?
And map of water.
Well, I think from what Michael told us, there is nothing accurate that really exists as a reference
Did
map.
we ask the planning board itself? I don't mean us, but I mean if she had something like that?
I don't think she does.
Well, I don't know if we asked her specifically, but I think Michael would know what it does and doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, a lot of these go way back before Michael, too.
Michael Tremper?
So I think I'll make another section of,
Also, Debbie in the planning office isn't really the keeper of those kinds
No.
of records. She would,
Well, I know she had a map.
actually, the building department keeps, records of projects that go through the planning board. She has some other resource maps hanging on the wall, but they're not exactly filed in any, I won't say logical, but any obvious place in the planning office, or Debbie would know about it.
I think, from what I've understood, that the reason that Barbara did what she did had to do with the fact that there wasn't a map available, map of everything in the town, that maybe there were portions of the districts for certain large-scale projects where the district boundaries were shown for that
And
project.
I think Michael told us there are, legal deed
Yes.
descriptions
Yep.
of the districts, but that doesn't help a layperson very much.
Yep,
I also know of houses that are in water districts that had not hooked up to the water.
yes, and there's stuff in the
Yeah.
code about
You know,
that.
when Somebody comes to you and says, am I hooked up to water?
Or can I hook up to
Or
water?
can I hook up to water?
Yeah.
And I think we should have a map on all of that.
Yes.
So that would be a recommendation to create.
I'm not talking into
to
the mic.
create-
Are you going to yell at me?
Am I not speaking into? Thank you, Peter. That's great. So the July 27th video has been added to the comp plan video link.
Look at that.
Good service.
Yes, very good service.
Fantastic.
All right, so there will be an objective about a map of water district and systems. That might even be another objective of its own after this, because this one, objective one, well, wait a minute. No, this could be in this one. Anyway, so the changed language says, make an assessment of the extent and locations of existing sewer/wastewater districts and systems, and explore possible connections with the existing sewer/wastewater systems. And then A is make an assessment and create a map of the extent and location of all existing sewer, wastewater districts and systems in the town of Fishkill, noting the areas listed below, and with notes about adjacent districts and systems near Fishkill's boundaries. And then it lists Village of Fishkill wastewater. These items were already in here. The closest town of East Fishkill sewer, paraphrasing City of Beacon wastewater treatment facility. New York State Matawan property has a private sewage treatment facility. Additionally, Tri-Municipal Commission includes Town of Poughkeepsie, Town of Wappinger, and Village of Wappinger Falls. And then the last line is taken out. And
Can
the
you add water?
And that's
Like,
what I was going to
didn't
say.
we- Yeah,
Well, what I'm going to do is add water up front.
okay.
Well, what I was wondering is whether you can just combine, wastewater, sewer, wastewater,
And water systems. Just do it
supply
all.
systems.
Okay.
Because we have things in different districts, too. We have some water districts that do not have sewer or wastewater.
And sometimes when you go, repeat wording for different things, but they're the same wording you're adding, it makes it easier to understand if you
And then,
just consolidate.
yeah, I
the
guess
wording.
it's B through F is all about sewer, because that,
Right.
way early on, there was a discussion of that in the committee process. And that's how that list came in there. So I guess I would add water district, adjacent water. Are there shared water districts between towns? I'll look and find out.
Pretty sure there must be.
Village, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, not in this.
Yeah.
We share with Village, and
Well, it's as a shared district, or is it, for example, I know the town buys water, so that's a
Yeah, we
different
do
complicated
buy.
thing.
We buy, we do not share.
we don't share.
I'll look and see if there are shared water districts.
Can we-
Okay.
Oh, can we also, because it's kind of, it's related to the same thing here, for objective 2, I would say maybe reword.
What page is that on? Because I was just on a,
Page 20. It's just below what we were just.
oh, yeah, I dog-eared it, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where we say may be available for development or redevelopment, maybe we can change that to may be available for development, redevelopment, or for consideration of the conservation zoning district outlined in this document.
I actually, in this little thing, this little page that I gave you this separately, I was going to take out F.
Yes, I'm talking about objective 2.
Oh, okay.
Where you have, we have here, examine the town of Fishkill's landscape to identify larger parcels of vacant land which may be available for development or redevelopment.
Okay, keep going.
I think we should add instead of just saying for development or redevelopment, we should say available for development, redevelopment,
Or
or for
conservation.
consideration of the conservation zoning district outlined in this document.
Well, maybe what we do is say,
I like that.
because this is like a header, say, examine the town of Fishkill's landscape to identify larger parcels of vacant land which may be available for development, redevelopment, or conservation. And then whatever jurisdiction we put it
Okay.
under later could be.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
It works for me. Mhm.
Because then you have three possible,
Exactly, yeah.
Use or
It doesn't
development
get too
scenarios.
wordy, it gets right to the
Okay,
point.
good.
Yeah, and there's a
Sounds good.
couple of references where it says development or redevelopment, and then I would say just to add in conservation, just so it's consistent.
Yeah.
okay, hang on, let me just. I think I started to do that, or conservation, or preservation. I don't think I did that here, I think I did it in the EIS, okay. Conservation or preservation? Or just conservation?
Why not both? Can we do both?
I mean, conservation, I think, covers it.
Conservation
Does it
covers
cover it?
everything, yeah.
I think so.
And
Yeah, I
then-
think it's a broader term, yeah.
I don't know, Liz, if you had a chance to look at a rewording of the first paragraph. Well, actually, it's objective 1, but it's actually the second paragraph. It's the first paragraph on page 20. There are zoning provisions about mixed use and compact development. For example, the designed multiple use development and planned shopping, et cetera, et cetera.
That's what she has here, that's what she handed out.
Right. So I don't know, though, Liz, if you had seen my rewording of that paragraph. I think,
Where did you do?
I emailed it. I can read it if you want.
Yeah.
Read it. I can certainly send it to you.
I don't, there was a lot of email and I was trying to
Yeah,
write
there was a
documents.
lot
I'm
of-
sorry, I
That's
couldn't,
no pro-
yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
I had a deadline for yesterday, so.
So just for
Okay.
context for everybody who's not maybe looking at it right now, it says, objective 1 is to promote better design and reduce the number of automobile trips by permitting compact, mixed-use development in identified areas of the town to encourage walking and public transit. There are zoning provisions about mixed use and compact development. For example, the designed multiple-use development and planned shopping center districts, as well as the RMF3 and RMF5 zones. The encouragement of small-scale neighborhood businesses may involve examination of existing zoning to identify potential sites where these might occur, or to determine whether zoning revisions would be, instead of needed, I replace that with beneficial to the town.
Okay, hang on.
And I can email it.
No,
so.
I got it.
Yeah.
It continues to say, however, there are limits to compact or cluster development, as many areas of the town of Fishkill do not have public sewer facilities, or, and this is just an editorial thing, have insufficient
Good.
additional sewer, so you put in the word have.
Got it.
Capacity. Similarly, many areas of the town of Fishkill do not have available public water facilities or have insufficient additional public water supply capacity. Sewer capacity is limited in terms of treatment, points of discharge, parentheses, Glenham, and line capacity. Public water supply capacity, I added, in some areas of the town, is limited by the small number of wells and problems with water quality in the existing wells. I have crossed out that final sentence of the town would have to explore and create new water sources and fund, design, and build new treatment and transmission facilities. We need to get rid of that.
I had a big question mark about that sentence, too, so I'm glad you point that out.
Yeah.
Wait, I think, let me say this, I think that what's missing there, just for clarification, in order to address this, the town would have to.
So I actually rewrote it, if I can
Yes.
say that.
okay,
So
go.
for now, we'll cross through that. So I wrote it as, when considering development, redevelopment, or conservation, the town should require all site development plans to include plans and funding on how to tie in to existing treatment and transmission facilities, and plans to create new water sources and new builds of treatment and transmission facilities, as well as provide an exit strategy should the developer choose to abandon the project or relinquish the ongoing management of said sources and facilities
Is
to
that
the
one
town.
sentence?
There's some commas and periods. I'll send it.
Yeah, if you could resend, because I don't want to
You
have,
send that to everyone?
I did.
yeah.
When
But was it in the
Brian.
middle
when did you
of,
see it? When did you send it?
I did send it this afternoon.
Today.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
It came rather
Oh, you
late.
sent,
I
okay,
get my email all the time.
sent, okay.
And that may be addressed by requiring a bond.
Was that in red?
That is,
It is in red, yeah. I
Okay.
did the whole, like, you can see very clearly the words
Okay.
I've added or changed.
At least now I can look for it.
Yep,
Okay, hang
yep,
on.
yep.
So I'll sort of raise my hand for some additional comment, but let's
And I have a comment,
let you
too.
catch up on that. I actually thought generally this wording was very good. Did you see my response that I sent, Ann? Yeah.
On my phone, so it's harder
Oh,
to.
so when we get to that point, I'll tell you what my suggestion is to make it even better. But I like the
Okay.
wording.
Did you email yours too?
Yes, I did.
Yep.
and I haven't been home
Oh,
yet.
I could go now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep? Yes, please.
Well, so this was kind of a combined response because Kevin had also sent in an email with, I won't characterize it, but a suggestion, and I won't even go through that now. But second part of it was I did have a chance to look at Ann's suggested wording, and I actually like it a lot, except I think we need to adjust some of the wording, because not all proposed site development plans would necessarily be able to or expected to tie into existing treatment and transmission facilities. And the way it's currently wording, it would basically be for any site development plan that's proposed.
Yeah, I
So
think,
I think we
right.
need to adjust that wording.
It was almost written like code.
But if they can't tie in, I guess my concern would be, it kind of opens the door. Like, if they can't manage a project on what is there and what is zoned, and maybe I'm misreading it, then maybe they shouldn't build that large of a project?
Well, but no, you're not talking about any size. You didn't say a large-scale project or anything like that. You just said all site development plans.
Right.
And that's a lot of things. That's a lot of small
Yeah.
things and big things and medium things. So a lot of site development plan proposals come into the planning board that don't have existing sewer or public water and probably don't have the feasibility to connect to those, and are able to then, provide documentation to the planning board as to whether or not they can provide their own on-site systems to have the development. So that's something that the planning board already does, and we review those things. So you can't say there shall be no development where applications cannot tie into public sewer and water. That would be taking people's property. That's not legal.
Right, so that's not exactly what I say. It says this town should require all site development plans to include plans and funding on how to tie into existing treatment and transmission facilities, and plans to create new water, okay, so that would, I could see where that would.
Yeah, so I'm
confusing.
suggesting.
So to create new treatment and transmission facilities. I guess my concern is, we have these systems, and as I attend the meetings, there's been so many systems that have failed because the project is kind of larger than life, or larger than the system will hold, and thereby it's kind of, we get burned in a sense. And again, I'm not an engineer, but to me, I feel like, if they can't tie in to what's existing, it just leaves us in a very precarious position.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, and then I'll explain what.
Yeah, because I could be like really, I've been trying to keep up with the emails. I know I haven't been around, and Kevin's been talking to me, and so the concern, I think, is people get scared by the phrasing like sewage treatment plant, right? That sounds really big and scary. But if someone wants to build and they're unable for whatever logistical reasons to tie into existing water, wouldn't they just put a septic tank? Oh, you're thinking of fresh water, I guess. So the sewage would be the septic tank on a property like that? So I wouldn't, and this could be just me personally, but I wouldn't be concerned necessarily with a septic tank. Or are we talking about?
So we're I'm kind of, interpreting that.
I understand.
Because we do want to have this compact development, but if we have, a certain acreage of property where someone wants to put in, I don't know, let's say 50 units, but they don't have the systems in place to do that, and it's not, the design of the town or the wishes of the town does not lend itself to a 50-unit project, I don't necessarily want to open the door for someone to say.
Part of the struggle is, I think we're all kind of.
They can't just do it.
For me, just reading, I always go back to the responses to the questionnaire, which were very clearly, wanting to make sure that we don't continue with the, unreasonable development that's gone on.
Right.
Like people definitely don't want that. So, I don't want that, right? So how do we word it so that it's possible for reasonable development, but not unreasonable development? Or is that really the job of the, sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So
Good question.
the way Ann has worded it makes me think that any proposed site development plan would have to tie into existing public water and sewer systems. But that can't happen. So the wording needs to be changed. So please, let me finish, okay? So just as an example, you probably should have also said subdivisions, because subdivisions are different from site development plans. But anyway, that's another story, because you can have a 2-lot subdivision, a 5-lot subdivision, even a little bit more that can have
2-lot subdivision.
on-site septic disposal systems. And many do. In fact, that's probably a large number of the subdivisions we see now, because there isn't enough land to develop with large subdivisions anymore in the town. Anyway, having said that, when you're saying basically all site development plans have to tie into existing sewer or public water systems, I think the wording could probably easily be arranged differently so that it's something like, and I didn't come up with the exact wording because it came so late and I didn't have time to really do it, but wording should be revised to perhaps require all applicants for site development plans to provide documentation on whether tying into existing public sewer and or water is feasible, and if so, the town should require plans as to how the proposal would tie into the facilities. And then I just added parenthetically, and of course the developer should fund the costs and be responsible for obtaining any necessary expansions of those sewer and water districts, which is what happens now. And that goes to the town board for consideration. So I think you just need to adjust that wording to not make it sound or even imply that all site development plans have to tie into public sewer and water, because they don't, and they can't, and they won't.
We can't do
Well,
it now.
to add to what you're saying, that they have to, let me see, taking opportunities.
So you want me to sort of,
Yeah, read the one comment where it's like they have to provide a documentation.
yeah, so
What?
wording should be further revised to perhaps require all applicants for site development plans to provide documentation on whether tying into existing public sewer and/or water is feasible, and if so, the town should require plans as to how the proposal would tie into those facilities, and yes, the developer should fund the costs
So,
of all that.
Let's say that they are not going to be tying in, and this may already be, a requirement. If they're not tying into the already existing system, do they, at the onset of their project, have to also provide plans for the wastewater treatment plant, the water system? I would hate to see
a
it
reason
be-
to have this verbiage in there, because I know we tossed around the idea of just pulling it.
Well, I don't,
Well, this is different. This is the whole.
this is the other-
This is the
this is
other,
the whole
yeah. I mean, I
opening.
think it's important, but, so I guess my question is, I don't want the town to get into a situation where, let's say somebody provided documentation that, no, it's not feasible, we can't tie in, but then kind of doesn't really demonstrate, what is your plan then to provide these services for this?
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, this happens all the time at the planning board, right, Fred?
Well, that's my question.
Everybody
Like,
has to go
I wanna
through,
know-
every system has to go through the Board of Health. So it is, whatever they have for the number of units has to be designed and be approved by the Board of
Right.
Health.
Is this
Or so they're not
at
gonna
the
sell their-
onset?
no, They're not going to sell their,
Or you
individual.
can't-
Right.
If you don't have Board of Health approval, you can't go, it dies
Well,
right there.
that's up for debate, because
I agree with, see, this is
I don't
why
think
a
it's
lot of times people are gun shy about this. I
projects
mean, you
get
would think
pushed
so.
through, even when all permits and all things aren't lined up, and there is no clear-cut plan on how water and sewer are going to get onto that site, and yet,
Yeah, but let me just
project is
say,
proceeded.
this does not mean that all sites have to have public sewer and water.
no, I
They
understand.
have their own on-site systems.
I understand
And that's
that.
what the health department has jurisdiction and the authority to
Right.
review and
Right,
approve.
so, again, back to my question then, does the project planner then have to present and say, I have county or state or whatever approval?
Absolutely.
Everything's in place. Well, there's a current project where that's not really,
Well, that's supposed to happen, basically what we do with those types of projects, and again, I'm trying to not
Projects.
focus your discussion on the simple two-lot subdivision type of project, if you
no,
know if you
I'm
know
not
what I
talking
mean.
about just that.
But you're saying all site development plans. That means something more than I think you mean to say. Because all site development plans includes a whole bunch over here of very small things that aren't ever going to have public sewer and water. And yes, they have to get their on-site wastewater and water supply systems, and sometimes they can hook up to public water, but not public sewer, and sometimes the other way around.
Right.
But the approvals are normally not going to be finalized by the planning board until, and unless they get health department approvals.
Right, but what I would like to avoid is the progression of larger developments or, visually impactful developments to proceed with certain steps of their plan when at the onset, they have not necessarily, and that's my question, they have not necessarily presented, okay, we have county approval, or we have state approval, or we have town approval, or whatever.
But that's never going to happen at the onset of the application, at the beginning part of the process. That's just not the way it works.
Can I just jump in?
Well, I mean, we're here to
I was trying to
discuss
jump
the
too, but I
comprehensive
got cut
plan,
off.
Yeah, but you also have to discuss the reality of how applications work in the overall state land use planning system. It's not just how it happens here in the town of Fishkill. It's the
Right.
way the state
Right. I
and county enabling legislation occurs, and we have to work within that.
And can I just jump from that?
Yeah.
The thing is, knowing the Fishkill board and other boards that I've worked with, there's a whole overarching process that they go through. So when I had a moment to start reading your language, I'm like, this sounds like code. And I'm not saying that in any critical way. It sounds like, hey, here's the mechanics of how this should happen. A lot of that is in the Fishkill code. It's a very savvy code. I've worked in a lot of different towns. It's a very savvy code. So when an applicant comes in, whether it's for subdivision or site plan, they have the requirements of information they have to provide for either subdivision or site plan, and then in addition to that, they might have zoning district standards, then there's design standards, and all along the pathway, they're going through New York State Environmental Quality Review, and those things dovetail pretty immediately, wouldn't you say? So
Yeah.
there's kind of this framework, and my only concern here is to avoid, it's a plan, we want to support the continued thorough and careful review, but there's also a process that I think, Jonathan, you're alluding to, where applicants can continue to progress through the process or try to progress. They're only going to get to the point of initiating seeker and setting a hearing and finishing the environmental quality review process when they've provided a certain amount of information and addressed a certain level of completeness and a certain sense. Some of them can't get their final approval from agencies until they've gotten a certain way through the local planning board process. So I feel like there's a very good mechanism between the town's code and the New York State Environmental Quality Review, especially in Fishkill, where a lot of what you were trying to express in there is kind of provided for. And so I want to look at the wording that you and Jonathan both came up with, but kind of try to put it into sort of a supporting that process to be whatever, careful and deliberate,
And when
rather than trying to superimpose
Is it okay to
something
speak
from the
now?
plan.
Let me just add that I actually like very much the wording that you put at the end after what we've been talking about, which is, as well as provide an exit strategy, as you put it. Maybe there could be other wording, but an exit strategy should the developer choose to abandon the project or relinquish the ongoing management of said resources and facilities to the town. I think that's good to say. It's just that we don't want to set this up for anybody to misconstrue that, because we're going to get a lot of lawsuits, and I'll say that out loud in public, if that wording that you put in there is put into the comprehensive plan. I'm simply saying we should revise the wording to avoid any implication that all site development plans need to do this, because they don't. They can't, and they won't.
Okay, can I add something now?
I think you had some good alternative words
Jesus
on that.
Christ.
So it was only, somebody needs to tweak it, but that was just my initial reaction to it. And I didn't have time to really thoroughly look at this, other than try to digest what it meant. And that was my main reaction to it, was that
So and again, I'm going back, and Jonathan, to be honest with you, it was a very long email, and I was only skimmed it. But the problem is, and I think this is a lot of residual concern with the fact that we had a comprehensive plan from 2009 that laid it out very well as the wording in the, like that we already have in the code, that should have prevented a lot of the issues that we're now facing. Right. So, I mean, I agree with you, actually, with what you're saying. But I also understand that where you're coming from. So I think, this being a public meeting, maybe this is, we'll tweak that wording, we'll put it in, but, everybody should understand how seriously this committee has taken the fact that opening any doors into development, and we need to have people elected into office who will follow the comprehensive plan. Right. And in both the spirit and the word. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think we need to agonize over this too much more. I think I think we should leave it in with, and come up with it, and just please, the people who are elected to the town to make these decisions understand that, this time, we actually do want everybody to know that this exists and that we worked on it, and that, that the very, very vast majority of people who responded were concerned about irresponsible development.
Can I ask you a question, people?
I just want to say something for the last 25 minutes, literally. Can I say it? You want to go first? Go right ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. One of the things that, you crossed out was the last sentence. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I thought the town wants in there is a way that if they can get money from the federal government or from the state, we have to have something in there that says, in the comprehensive plan, that says that's a goal of ours, to increase at the town or whoever expense, to have new water facilities or, extend the water out. And unless we have it in there, somewhere in the comprehensive plan, we're not able to bid it out, because that's one of the questions that they look for. I know I spoke to the town of Poughkeepsie, and now they have brought water through the government to every single parcel. Not everybody's hooked in, but they brought water to every single parcel, and they got the money from the federal government. And I think we should have something in there.
Do they have an independent wastewater system?
What?
Do they have an independent wastewater system? Is that what they have?
Not in talking wastewater, I'm talking about
Freshwater.
freshwater.
Freshwater, okay.
All right?
So can you go ahead?
So I'm just saying, I'd like to see something in this without having that crossed off, because that's basically what that's saying, is, the town would have to explore and create new water courses and funds, or funding, whatever you want to say, design and build new treatment and transmission. And we're never going to do it on our own. So it'll never be done on our own.
So Kenya should go, but while we're on that thought, there are two different things involved. One is developers who want to develop whatever the heck they want to develop, and they need to do certain things. The other is there are certain cases, as Fred, I think, is implying, where a town or a village or a city may want to provide public sewer, for instance, in areas where there are failing septic systems for public health and safety reasons. And in that kind of case, that's different from the developer coming in and...
And this wording then needs to be the way I read that is all of this then puts the onus, that final sentence puts the onus on the town for all of this other business that comes before it. So
yeah, and it shouldn't. Right, I agree with that it shouldn't be that way, yeah.
So, I'm sorry, can you?
No.
Please say.
So I'm just so confused at this point.
Very patiently waiting.
So, again, and I apologize for interjecting on you, Mr. Cantor. I did a little research, right? So way back when, like more than 20 years ago, I think Mike Tremper has been with the town of Fishkill 20-plus years. And so he knows our water, he knows our systems. And so I think when it comes to, develop certain parts of Fishkill that we say can't be developed or is going to have small units on it or whatever it is, they would have the opportunity, if they're not connected to any water system or wastewater system, to develop their own wastewater system. Am I correct? Am I saying that right? And so, because I don't want to be confusing myself.
You're right.
So if they can do that, they said that years ago, parts of Fishkill was like that, where certain communities had their own wastewater system. However, the wastewater system was then neglected by the builders, and then the town was then forced to take it over and now bear the burden. So when I look at that, there are parts of Fishkill that's going to require a wastewater system, and we can say, the town board can say that you can build this here if you create your own wastewater system. But when you do that, we already been there. We know what it's going to be like, and so therefore it will then become a taxpayer's burden because we've already been there. So my thing is that I'm not the expert in this. Mike from Camo is, and the way it got explained to me is that we should not go backwards in this process. We should move forward because we've already known how to experience that. So there are some projects that are not off the ground yet, but there have been some backdoor groundwork being done, and so therefore my fear is, right, again, this is this rumor mill that you have no life to until it comes up, is that I don't want us to be in a position that we make decisions here in this comp plan because we're thinking the big picture, we don't control the projects, all that other stuff, but the people that are involved in this will say it's in the comp plan, so it lends itself to that. So this problem of the wastewater independence will become a town problem, but I believe that the people won't do the right thing and they'll just defer to the comp plan like it's in there. Like I almost feel like a phobia at this point because of what the village experienced, and so I'm trying to be overly cautious to try to make the best decisions, cross my T's, dot my I's, and then look to the experts. Like all of us are learning together, but some of us have more knowledge, and some of us are here by, in my opinion, because this is beneficial, and then some people I think are just going to benefit. And so I'm worried about this part. I'm worried about the wastewater system and the independent part, because they can do it, but it will become a burden if they walk away. And I think the money that we spent on, I can't remember, I think it's Louise's area recently, we were supposed to be $1.5 million or some crazy number, or 500,000, it was some crazy number, and they were able to use ARPA money to actually get it fixed. We don't really know what the piping looks like underground in certain places, and so therefore, it's not really our responsibility, I think. I think like our job is to do this, but when you look a little deeper into doing this, what we set in black and white will set the precedence for what happens, and I'm very concerned. Like, I will say that I'm not in agreement with them deciding to put in their own wastewater system if it's legal to say that. If you give me the word in to say that's legal, then I'll do that too. But if they do that and they leave it back to the town, it's almost like, shame on you 2 or 3 times, because we already have Mike Tremper to tell us that we already tried this, it didn't work, and we paid the dues for that. That's all I got to say.
Could I ask, because I've heard you say it a couple of times, what actually happened in the village? Because I'm not, I don't know what happened.
It's a long story, Mr. Cantor.
Could you make it a sort of short story?
So the shorter version is that the originally, whatever the Fishkill bill they were going to do like living arrangements for seniors there. And so the original comp plan was changed to allow for a certain type of build without it having to go through a certain committee process. And so when you can do as of right build, is that the language I'm going to say that is correct thing? If they have as of right build, they didn't have to go through the town. So prior to the change in the comp plan, they had to go through the town to get approval to their build.
Comp plan that allowed.
And now they changed it.
Higher.
They changed the comp
More
plan,
high density.
and people were sitting there, and they say, I don't know. They say, I wasn't aware, I wasn't knowledgeable.
What are you talking about?
The Fishkill Church Reform, whatever.
Nazarene.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so,
Right.
okay, that's That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if that's what we were...
But it affected
Okay, but
west
that's a
of
village,
that.
it's a
Right. It
village
affected
property.
west of
It had to
that,
go
that's
through
right.
the village, not the town.
No, I
No,
know.
the town backed out, Mr. King, to the town. They didn't even, they dropped their request to the town. That's not the problem. But the problem is that the comp plan originally did not have the ability to build at the level that it was at. And so they did a revision of the comp plan. This is my understanding. I was like in this because I signed my name to the letters and stuff, so I wanted to know what I was signing to. And so basically what wound up happening there is that comp plan it got revised to accommodate for the revision.
So I guess my question is then, how does that relate to anything that we're saying we had?
So what I'm saying here is that there's a rumor mill, right? I can't sell into the rumor mill. I mean facts, right? So we can look around this room, we can look like we're startled or we're confused, but there are some things that are happening, right, that I can't publicly speak to exactly, and so it has caused me to be very cautious with the things that I'm doing here. And so therefore, this wastewater system change that allows for them to build their own system, and if it's legal and that's what they do, then that's what they do. However, I said, where did this come from? And I kept saying that in my emails, like, where did this come from? Who put this? There's a whole tie to it. If you do nothing with it, all I'm going to do is say that Kenya Gadsden was not in agreement with this, and so shame on the people that sat here and knew that they played a role in it and didn't do anything. They just let it become a taxpayer's problem. That's what I'm going to say in like 10 years.
Yeah, I don't know what happened in the village of Fishkill. But I know that a comprehensive plan is going to state objectives, but it isn't, it's a document that can enable a town or a village to do things like change their code, because, so for example, the 2009 plan had a lot of information in it, and it really was a plan that was very much focused on supporting code changes, and a lot of code changes were done way down the road, and correct me if I'm wrong here with the history, but you have to change your code to be able to enable somebody to do other kinds of density development.
That's what they did.
So they changed their code. It wasn't just it was a comprehensive plan.
It was in the plan.
May I explain? I did. So what happened was the comprehensive plan, and it particularly cited west of Jackson.
So you're talking about the village's comprehensive plan?
Correct, and it's, again, a cautionary tale, and that's why, I often say, like, I live in the town, but I'm at the mercy of the village, because I cannot leave my neighborhood. Brian, you're the same, you're in my neighborhood, you cannot leave your neighborhood without entering the village. And so all of these decisions,
Unless you hit Jackson and take.
and go north, that's right, into Wappinger,
There's an
and we
al-
want to support
there's an
Fishkill.
alternative.
So what happened is the comprehensive plan allowed for the consideration of rezoning that particular small area to allow for higher buildings. Now it's 4-story, and so that empty lot that sits there,
And it's weird, and we know it's weird, and we know that's not what we're doing.
Right.
But we lived through that, and I have friends in the village who were affected by that, and it was
Gotcha.
very upsetting, and I was upset for them. And we just want to make sure we don't do that here.
Right.
And this whole thing, like, I'm trying to listen to both sides. I think everybody's making sense. I just think, probably, there is a deep urge, and I just don't want it to tip over into being like irrational, right? But there's an urge to not let that happen, one town away, okay? Because it did.
Right.
And it had that kind of impact.
Right.
We want to do our jobs and make sure it doesn't.
So you're not
So-
talking about the Nazarene property?
Understood.
You're talking,
No.
Okay, you're talking with the old medical group, the extra lot?
No, we're not talking about any of that. We're talking about an example of a community that sat down, rehashed a comprehensive plan, a loophole was permitted in it.
They put
What does it have
verbiage
to do
in.
with wells and septic?
So-
Because we
because
want to
there's-
make sure that the same kind of loophole doesn't
Got it.
show up here.
Right.
And so let's just make.
Like, how does it
sure.
not? Like, how
Because
does
if we're nervous about it, that means other people are nervous about it. What can we do to make sure that it's not there? And I appreciate the conversation, because I definitely don't understand this. And so that, all I'm trying to say is that why everybody kind of has strong feelings about it. We just want to be really, really sure that it's not going to be a repeat of what we saw.
We have in the town, I just talking, our town, the town itself, we have limited areas where we can put in new sewage plants.
Okay.
And when you say
Okay?
new, is that
And
means
the only
independent?
place you could put them in is along the Hudson River, all right?
Okay.
Or along the Fishkill Creek.
Because you have to have,
You have to have that water supply to do
Gotcha.
it.
well,
The
you
way the
have to have
village
a
is-
place for the clean discharge to go.
Yeah,
Okay.
you need that. So the village, as you know, is doing their, all being updated. all
Unless
right?
it's a
And one of the reasons
subsurface
they're being
discharge.
updated is because they're allowing the town to go into it, all right? And they discharge or use the Fishkill Creek,
Okay.
all right? The city of Beacon, who has a large plant, and we have a lot of our sewage going there. All right? And they've taken over where Dutchess Park and their sewer plant went out because it became antiquated. All right? And it was really not really there because they were discharging into the Fishkill Creek.
Right.
They now ran a line along the tracks all the way into Beacon. So that's where our limit is, basically, if somebody's going to be putting in a new
Okay.
sewer system.
I mean-
The only, we have very limited, the big property that we have that could be done for a new sewer plant is called Texaco, or Chevron, or whatever you want to call it. All right? And I'm not even sure who they're hooked into.
Okay.
All right? So,
So is it okay, I don't know if we had a line.
if I live on Cedar Hill, all right, and we have a subdivision right coming off there right now, and the guy's doing a 3-lot subdivision, where's he going to hook in? Can't do it, all right? And you say, well, you have to try and hook in. I got to go a half a mile for a 3-lot
So then he would
subdivision?
do his own independent?
He's going to have a sewers, he's going to have a septic,
I'm sorry.
all right?
Okay.
We have an area which has failing sewage, which is Sunrise, the Hunt development. You guys know that, of course, it's from the
Is it a
cemetery.
failing system?
We've always had a problem there.
Okay.
Long time. They were voted, they went to the people, they said, "Do you guys want to pay for it?" They told them what the price was, and they said, no.
a lot of
But
money.
there's this place that if we could get the town to supplement it by getting money from whoever, all right, and then bring it to the people and say, would you hook in? They're probably going to say yes, because it's not going to be $10,000.
You have to put it within reach.
Yeah, it has to be, okay? And maybe if the town could hook in, because it's not that far, to the village system, where ShopRite is,
Right.
okay?
Well, that's
But
why
they still have to
why we
have the
listed all
piping,
these
and the only
things.
way they're going to ever get it done is if the town could get a bond or go somewhere and get money to do it. Is it going to cost? It's going to cost, but again,
Right.
that's going to solve a problem. Putting wells in, we've done that. We've now have, and every project that we have that comes to, almost every project that comes, says where the people going to get their sewer, where they're going to get their water, and if they're going to put in a septic system, they got to go to the Board of Health, they got to get it approved, they got to do their deep hole test, they got to do their perk test, they got to have it designed by an engineer, get approved, all right? They have to put in a test well to see where they're going to get the water from.
They have to deal with the aquifer regulations.
Oh, you got it. And I see that. I agree with you. Somebody's changing it, and I hate that project that went in.
Fred, can I interrupt?
Go ahead.
Kenny, did you finish your points?
No, I just wanted to ask one final question. You can tell me if it's out of line or not, but thank you, Brian. So is it okay, like, if I reach out to Mike Trump and ask him, like, my questions? Because I know in the last year, there are some projects that are going down, and he had to be a part of them. I'm not privy to the exact ones, but it would definitely put an end to the rumor mill that I have, and it'll allow me to have understanding so that I'm not speaking to you guys in a vague way, and you have, like, because I feel crazy too if I'm speaking to you in, like, hypothesis, like
Well,
this
maybe
could
we
happen
can,
to
maybe
us.
we can ask him to come to the
I
next
would-
board meeting.
That would be good. That would be really
Come to the
good.
next board meeting and answer questions there. I mean,
Right,
town board meeting is what I mean.
yeah, that's the 19th.
That would be, because, listen, all issues aside on rumor or village, I've heard from Mike and others and the legacy of the town of these things that wind up costing the town, and it's rather appalling to me that those situations have happened. I don't know that anyone's interested. I'm not interested in taking over someone who starts a project and it turns into some lousy situation and then we got to foot the bill. I don't want that to ever happen again. I don't want that ever to happen again. There's no reason for us to have that happen. And in this, every project has to be reviewed and da-da-da-da-da. But what I'm hoping to do right now is, if this is our last point, is just maybe focus on our final wording here for the evening. Because the debate has been very worthwhile, if you don't mind. But I'm on board with the sentiment, and there's no reason why anybody isn't on board. And Karen, you made good points, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for being here. Thanks
But
for
if
being on the committee.
I thought we put in,
We may or may
for
not
any of
meet
the
again.
water and sewer,
Nice if we could.
that they have to bond that today. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have to have a bond
We
for
do that.
that.
You guys put that in. The
Yeah.
town board put it in last year, or the year before.
Isn't that in the code?
It's in the code.
It's in
Yeah.
the code, you
So they
have a
have,
bond.
all right, and the big project that we're going now, they, cost millions of dollars for the whole
Yeah.
project, but how much is it to do the water and sewer? And if they don't do it, it's bonded.
Yeah.
All right? So I'm not sure where we're losing it, all right? And a lot of the projects that were put in function, they just got old. And those are the ones
Well,
the town ended up taking
I'm
over.
talking to Tripper.
And I don't, I hate that, but again.
Kenny wants to talk to Tripper, and I get that, because I've talked to
Yeah, I
him.
just don't want to be
There's
an
so much-
independent person, like, I don't mind if we speak to him as a team.
No, I'm saying his information is valuable for all of us.
Yes, I
And I'm learning from him, and he's told me these tales, and I'm like, what? This historical mistake. So I think if he can have him at the town board meeting.
But I think you'd want to at least have a project name or a tax parcel ID number, because he's not going to know.
Oh, he is,
Okay, he'll know.
yes.
Okay, good, that's good.
Like, when I was on the town board, he was very, very, like,
Good.
he was very knowledgeable with the water.
Good.
He knows
He
what
could tell
water is.
you when,
Everything.
even
He
these
knows where
lawyers.
the water is and where
Yes,
the sewer is.
Yes, yes, so he's very well informed. So he'll know if he was on a project walked through in the last year or so.
And if he doesn't know where it is, he'll dig for it.
Right, there you go.
Well, I mean, I think,
Yeah.
just to Karen's point, I think, as per the survey, I think a lot of people are very gun-shy about getting burned. And as Kevin said at the last meeting, we're offering suggestions, recommendations, but the board is going to vote on it. And, I want to know that the spirit of this document that we have all worked really hard on is going to be carried through and taken seriously in all of this work. It's not just going to be like, oh, right into the circular file, thanks for all your hard work. Everyone here is very busy. We
That's
have
why there's an
dedicated a lot of
implementation
time.
plan and a timeline.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything like that in the 2009 plan. It was a few pages that didn't say when are you supposed to
Yeah.
do what, so.
So that's, I just, again, I look forward to looking at the new verbiage. I want to make sure that the residents are covered, that we're, not getting steamrolled because of some, word that is or isn't present in this paragraph that, it.
Understood.
I have more to say if, at some point. Is this
Please.
a good point to
Yes.
jump in? So, So we have Liz's suggested wording, incorporating the new language.
That was just to throw a ball in the
Objective
game.
one.
You mean the A
And,
through F?
and the maps, do the maps and all that. And to delete subsection F. What I'm saying, and I've sent out an email earlier where everybody had a chance to look at it and respond and come up with substitute wording for subsection F, but I put a new version of subsection F out there
Okay, good.
quite a while ago for people to look at.
Yep.
And I, for one, don't want to see subsection F just deleted, period, because I think there are things we can add in there that would not put the town in jeopardy or create ambiguous wording. And so I will just read it again. So we're deleting previous section F, also there may be a vacant site or site available for redevelopment that would accommodate a wastewater treatment system. That's the wording that created all the questions before. And my replacement wording is to go as a new subsection F, or whatever that letter may now be.
I think there's room for an F.
Either an F or a G.
We'll figure
Yeah,
it
it
out.
looks like there's now a different F.
Go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
So,
You just go.
sorry,
Go ahead.
so,
We'll figure it out.
the
The
wording,
next letter.
the wording that I came up with was, take advantage of other opportunities, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, but that is a follow-up to these other subsections that are already in there that are referring to specific extensions to existing sewer systems. Take advantage of other opportunities for reuse or enhancements of existing sewer wastewater treatment systems and/or water supply systems, because I think they're both important, in order to meet the smart growth principles in Goal B, Objective 1, which includes things like mixed land use, compact building design, a range of housing opportunities and choices, walkable neighborhoods, and protection of environmental resources such as aquifers, among others, while not adversely impacting existing residential neighborhoods. So the other opportunities could include things that we were talking about, existing private or what you would call, on-site wastewater and/or private water supply systems. There are parcels I can think of that you can read about and are described in the large parcel analysis. I won't, waste time to talk about them here, but there are some that have former systems like that could be reused or enhanced, and those parcels could be available for redevelopment. And that's part of the strength of our updated plan, is talking about reusing already existing developed parcels that are now abandoned, and make use of those facilities that could be reused. That basically is my new subsection F. I do not see any wording in there myself, and I've looked at a lot of plans before, that would put the town in jeopardy or make things ambiguous as to what that means. And so my recommendation is that we put that new subsection F or G, whatever it may be, into the plan, because I do agree that deleting the previous wording is a good idea, but not just leaving it blank.
So if I can add a comment, I think the thing that hung me up on this is, while not adversely impacting existing residential neighborhoods, there are projects that, I guess it's all subjective, but how can that be interpreted? Like adversely impacting existing residential neighborhoods? Does that mean interfering with their systems? Does that mean drawing water from, so for example, and I hate to keep using the village as an example, but I live right there, so it was easy, and I studied it quite a bit. So, by putting in, some of these systems and buildings, it did adversely impact, from our view, it adversely impacted our wells and so forth, but from, other views, it was like, it doesn't really negatively impact you. So again, it really boils down to, is this document going to be, is the spirit of what the people want in this document going to be interpreted? And, I mean, that always comes down to who's in office, who's at the head of the table.
It also
So-
comes down to what's in the code, and also who's on the planning board and who's in charge of the state environmental quality
Right.
review process, because theoretically, if somebody's building a water treatment system next to another property, I would imagine there would be some kind of a groundwater or hydrological study,
hope so.
or there should be.
Right.
And I would imagine that in Fishkill, that would be true, based on what I know now.
Right.
And also why I put in that part about
Except for your
without
experience.
adversely impacting adjacent residential neighborhoods is because I had heard during the discussions and the numerous emails that came around about the sewer and water systems, is that putting a treatment facility on a site would be terrible for adjacent residential neighborhoods in terms of the impact of the treatment plant itself. Odors, smells, whatever, noise.
Right.
That could come out, if that's the part of it that's worrying you, because I only put it in to protect adjacent neighbors if some system were redeveloped. The fact is, though, if it were redeveloping an existing wastewater system, it's already been there, and it's already had impacts on
Such as
whoever.
Village of Fishkill.
Yeah, and I mean, this whole discussion about the village of Fishkill is sort of irrelevant in my mind, because, first of all, I can't quite understand, as I heard it described, that it was simply a change in the comprehensive plan that allowed the village to consider
that doesn't make-
this church development. Well, no, that would not be the
No, it
case.
was a
Unless they
several
change
step
their
process.
zoning.
Well, but if the
Right.
step process involved amending the village's code
Right.
that came from the comprehensive plan, that's a different story, and I didn't hear that as part of the.
I'm sorry, I didn't
story.
articulate that well, I apologize.
So
No, it's-
if it did,
it's not
that was
bad.
something that wouldn't necessarily have had to been implemented by the village board, because the comprehensive plan does not make the village or town board do anything. And a developer could argue that it does to their heart's content and not get very far in a court, because a comprehensive plan does not result in anything happening unless the legislative body of that municipality takes further action on it.
Well, I guess therein lies part of my concern is,
Well-
so,
So
I mean,
I
it could be
understood
circling
from,
and circling.
I understood because you and I, obviously live adjacent to that property, and I understood that it didn't happen because they needed a zoning change, and the village wasn't going to give them a zoning change. This is what I understand it came down to. They weren't going to grant a zoning change.
Yeah, so the end of the story is the village didn't approve that development anyway, so I don't quite get.
But
It's a
on
long-
the
it's a longer
corner,
story, right.
it opened the door for other,
Right, I'm not gonna get into
other
it.
situations and projects.
You know
And
they-
so,
You
again,
know the big medical, the big property there?
Yes.
On the corner? Somebody did come in with a project way early, and the town turned it down. They
The
wanted-
village.
The village, the village turned it down. They wanted to have stores on the bottom and units up above. And they turned it down. So right now it's sitting.
So,
By the way, that vacant property I was considering for a sewer plant is already owned by the town.
that you were considering,
Yeah,
Fred?
that was, you remember I said, there's that piece? It's a great place for a sewer plant.
Yeah, why don't you buy the property and then build your own
Town
sewer
owns
plant?
it.
Which one?
It's behind,
sorry about my mess.
it's at the junction of 84, and you own property from 84 on the creek, on the,
It's not a triangle piece, is it?
on the north side. There's a whole bunch that you guys own now, and it's on it, it's
Is
back
it-
there,
is
it's
it-
sort
it
of,
right on the creek's not in the floodplain?
course it's always in the floodplain, everything's in the floodplain.
Anyway, that's sort of another thing.
That's a whole other-
I'm trying to get us out of here as soon as possible, but I won't leave, myself, I will not leave by simply deleting that former subsection F without something that would be like what I'm suggesting here. And if anyone has any suggestions for better wording, I'm open to it, but I asked for it, in fact, I asked committee members to come up with their own language several weeks ago, and I never saw anything.
Well, as I said, I believe it should be removed, and I reworded the objective 1, I think, to better protect, I guess, the residents. I feel that, in my opinion, I don't feel that needs to be in there. I think that I understand what you're saying. Maybe we can combine your verbiage for section F into objective 1.
What?
Yeah, that's fine.
But, I think I would be very interested in looking at the paragraph rewording, because as you very plainly said, and I think astutely said, it really does need to be looked at in context.
Okay.
And again, I would really hate to see us just kind of leaving a loophole.
So can we ask Liz to come up with that new wording for objective 1, which gets into the things that we were discussing before? And again, I like a lot of your wording in there, but to clarify that by no means are we intending to say that every single site development plan application that comes into the town has to hook up to public water or sewer, or they can't build. That's just not, that's an
That's a site-specific review
That's an
thing.
interpretation that someone may have, like myself, because that's how I looked at that, to come up with clarification of that wording, and then to see if we can retrofit the wording that I've come up with somehow into that objective 1. I don't care if it's a subsection F or G or X, Y, or Z, as part of the objective to really address other situations that could come up, like existing on-site systems that could be reused in a very good way.
I think it's important in a comprehensive plan to try to stick to broad language and try to avoid anything that sounds like a requirement that should be in the code. So,
And then put that revised wording in the revised version that's going to go to the town board for consideration of adoption.
Well, can we look at it first, or?
yeah.
Yeah, why-
Yeah, I mean, at this
Okay,
point, the
gotcha.
timeline is that I would have to get things to the town board the week before the meeting of
Isn't that
May
week?
3rd.
Yeah, next, right.
Oh, May 3rd, and you got
Yeah.
time.
I mean, I'd like to do it sooner,
Right.
certainly. So be great to have arrived at the happy point of the wording by, say, April 26th.
Yeah.
That's the Wednesday, so let's aim for working that out
So are we
before
going to ask
that.
Mike Tremper to come to our May meeting?
Yes.
That's a good
We're having a
idea.
May meeting?
No.
Oh,
No.
May
May
town
You mean
board.
the- You mean
Okay.
the April meeting?
No, he's talking
April
about
19th, they
come-
said.
April
19th.
I don't know
I
if
mean,
that's
if you
too
can,
short notice,
Yeah,
right?
that might be too short.
April 19th that's next Wednesday, and
That's
that's.
another public
They're
hearing.
doing, well, it's continued CPU public
Right.
hearing, and hopefully determining completeness of the final generic environmental impact statement and adopting the findings statement.
I think any questions that we're going to ask him should be sent to Liz, so he has answers for us, he's ready for answers, rather than just hit him
Off the
with,
top of his head. Yeah, that
30
makes sense.
questions and...
And who, are you going to
No,
set it up so?
anybody on the committee.
No, I'm saying,
I can contact him.
That's what I need to know.
I just got to make
Okay.
sure he can make the 19th. It's,
And maybe he can't, maybe it has to be the.
Well,
right.
yeah, I mean, I had emailed that very question, so I'm glad that you're going to be reaching out to him.
But let's get questions to Liz,
Right.
so.
I hear you.
So, all right, good idea.
It makes sense to me.
Questions to Liz
You okay with that?
for
Yep, I'm good.
419. And then, okay, and then I'm saying I want to try to get the objective B1 wording into a happy place before April 26. So there may be some back and forth. I may have to pick your brains.
Just for the purpose, you know, we have a meeting May 3rd, and then we don't meet again till the 24th. So I'm just saying.
What is, oh, okay.
I'm talking about timeline, you know. if
A
we need
timeline
to-
for-
If we need to, if we're not going to be ready for May 3rd, I'm just letting you know, the next meeting after that
Oh,
is
why
May
wouldn't we be
24th,
ready for May 3rd?
Because we switched the meeting from the 17th to the 24th.
Oh. I mean, originally, the idea was that we were aiming to have this thing, the CPU adopted on the 19th.
Right.
But it seems like not appropriate to try to cram all that in.
Right, I'm just
And May
letting you
3rd
know,
is too, okay.
3rd and the 24th are the main
Okay.
meetings.
I feel something burning in the back of my head, somebody wondering if I'm going to push it off.
And then, so you're,
Oh, I thought you meant seriously. Oh,
and so you're going to send us the written commentary, right? That was the public submitted to the, as the
Yeah,
public.
wait a minute, let's get my to-do list here. I'm forwarding you, okay.
There were several more.
I don't know how many letters
After
there were, but-
findings, and I'm forwarding to you, I believe it's Holland and Knight commentary. Does that sound right? Who was the letter? Okay.
For that
I'll forward you.
development, I can't recall.
Oh, wait a minute, it's, okay,
Back tomorrow night,
okay.
planning board.
Oh, good job.
I'm going to have to ask, I'll ask Cooper to forward the Holland and Knight, because I'm not
Then you can read.
supposed to have eyes on it. Ask Cooper.
I am now going to be texting Brandon Knapp to come lock the front door. So we finished? Are we close to finishing?
how long does it take him to get here?
What about the front door?
No, the front door for us to get out, it's got to be locked.
Okay.
He's got the key, so.
Who? You?
He's waiting, Brandon, with the,
Okay.
Oh, we're ready.
Oh, yeah.
We adjourned?
I think we are,
Yes.
and you know the timeline, so hopefully see somebody at the meetings to enjoy the adoption of this thing, ultimately. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, we are.
thank
we
you,
are adjourned.
everybody. Committee members. What?
You-
Because I don't have anything.
Thank you, our one and only live audience here.